Soul Calibur 4 was originally going to be the last game in the Soul Calibur franchise. However, the series was renewed for a 5th game after a voting poll was put into effect, which of course made its quota. Soul Calibur 5 was developed in a span of 3 to 4 years and was released on January 31st, 2012. I'm gonna give it to you straight. This game was hands down one of the biggest disappointments in my personal history of gaming. It's hard for me to say this about a game franchise I really love, but I have to be honest here. So why do I feel this way? Well, you're going to find out right now in my review for
Soul Calibur 5.
Now, as far as presentation goes, Soul Calibur 5 was no doubt a beautiful game. I love the overall detailing of the title screen, with its elaborately designed borders, whimsical background, and the special effects you see as you scroll through the game modes. It's one of the best looking games of the 6th generation of console gaming. As far as character designs go, while I'm still disappointed that they went further into the anime style with the facial rendering, I have to admit that from a graphical standpoint, they were beautifully done. Speaking of which, this time around, the game introduced 7 new characters. You have Patroclus, Pyrrha, Zwei, Viola, Natsu, Laisha, and Zyba. Patroclus and Pyrrha are the children of Sophidia, and fight with the sword and shield style, and were the replacements for Sophidia and Cassandra. Patroclus' gameplay is original and totally different from his mother's style, while Pyrrha's gameplay is pretty much Sophidia's with a few moves of her own. Zwei is a mysterious guy who uses the cross-handle sword, but is also able to summon a magical wolf. I'll talk more about him later. Viola is a mysterious fortune teller who fights with the crystal ball style. Natsu is a replacement for Taki, and she uses the same style as her with a few moves of her own. Leisha is a daughter of Zhanghua and served as her replacement. And Zyba was a spiritual successor for Kilik and to an extent Sung Mina, as he was meant to replace both their styles. He does have a few moves from Kilik, but most of his moves are his own. Honestly, with the exception of Zwei and Viola, I was pretty disinterested with the replacement characters, and I'll explain more on that later. The outfit designs in this game were a bit hit or miss, but overall, I found myself enjoying quite a few of them, especially for Ivy, which was a huge improvement over that god-awful outfit she had in Soul Calibur 4. The only design I didn't really care for was Patroclus' 1-player outfit. They should have just went with his 2-player outfit as its main look, but that's just my opinion. But other than that, while some of the character designs were a little too anime for my taste, they were okay. This game also had a guest character, and this time around, we got Ezio Auditore from the Assassin's Creed series. I'm gonna be honest, I never cared to play the Assassin's Creed games because it didn't really interest me. But I will say that Ezio was a great guest character, and was much more fitting than the Star Wars characters from Soul Calibur 4. He fit in perfectly. He looked great in the Soul Calibur style, and his moveset was beautifully executed. Ezio was a great choice, and I'm glad that they picked him to be the guest character. The stages in this game were really nicely done, with beautiful lighting effects and an amazing amount of detail put into the environments. They were much more memorable than the stages in Soul Calibur 4, and were a huge improvement. And I can say the same for the music. The music in this game was much better than the music in the last game, as this game had more memorable songs, with beautiful compositions. I especially found myself enjoying the themes for Viola, Zwei, Zyba, Mitsurugi, Voldo, and Ezio. You were also able to select any character's theme to play in any level, which was pretty cool. The music in this game is on par with the music from the first 3 Soul Calibur games, and I mean that in the best way possible. Seriously, the music was really good this time around, and was a huge improvement over Soul Calibur 4's music. The gameplay in this game was alright. The controls were responsive, and I'm happy that they ditched the slow-ass gameplay speed from Soul Calibur 4. The gameplay feels on par with Soul Calibur 2 and 3, and that is definitely a good thing. The game adds a few new mechanics, like the flashy quick steps that allow you to quickly sidestep attacks, and going up the new meter system, another new feature was the Brave Edge, which is really just a powered up version of an attack, and last but not least, you can save the meter to perform a critical edge, which are pretty much super moves. Each character has a different unique critical edge, and some of them look pretty interesting if I have to be honest. The new mechanics work, and are simple to adjust to, but I really didn't like how they took out the garden packs. It made it cause gauge meter to perform. It really makes garden packs kind of useless. I mean, you can perform just guards, but personally, I was never able to get the hang of them. And if you block too much, you'll get a guard break that leaves you stunned and open for a follow-up attack. I'm just really annoyed that defensive play in this game is a risky gamble, because it takes away the complex dynamic that was present in the old games. Character movesets have also been severely shortened, and I'm sorry but I was not a big fan of that. but I suppose that the shortened movesets do make the game more accessible and easier for new players to learn, which I guess is understandable. It's just that for me as a Soul Calibur veteran, I preferred when the game was more complex. All in all, the gameplay was decent, and shortened movesets aside, it was still pretty fun. Now this is where the game goes downhill. For starters, the game modes leave a lot to be desired, and I cannot stress that enough. The only playable modes in this game other than online mode are Story, Arcade, Quick Play, and Legendary Souls. That's it. No survival mode, no time attack, no mission mode, and even more disappointing, no campaign mode for custom characters. Ugh. Story mode. Arcade mode is... Ugh. Do I really have to talk about the story mode? Fine. Story mode is set 17 years later after the events of Soul Calibur 4, and follows Sophidia's two children, Patroclus and Pyrrha. And I'm sorry, but these two characters are some of the most whiniest, annoying characters I've ever witnessed in a video game. Ever. Patroclus is just an unlikable douchebag who killed innocent people for the lamest of excuses.
You're pale and filthy. You must be a Malfested as well.
No, my lord. I am not one of them.
Is that so? How unfortunate there's no way to prove it.
Yep, that's our hero, everyone. Pyrrha is a little more likable than her brother, but she's still a whiny mess of a character to annoying degrees, and it made it hard to sit through some of her scenes. The two characters travel across Europe, and on the way, you get an occasional small cameo from some of the main characters, but really, the story stays on Patroclus and Pyrrha the whole time, to borderline creepy degrees. Ugh. Believe me guys, it's pretty unsettling.
Shut up! What do you know?
The story overall is just a mess, and it felt like I was reading a bad fanfiction come to life. It was just boring as hell to sit through, and it's plagued with awful dialogue.
Seems you are unable to obey my orders. I've had enough. Leave my sight at once and never return. A dog such as you has no business making demands.
I'm no dog. I am a holy warrior!
How absurd. You are nothing more than a dog. I couldn't care less about what happened to a pathetic dog's family. She's probably already dead in some alley.
You occasionally get to see a CGI cutscene, which looks beautiful, but they're far and few between. Instead, get to sit through boring sepia-toned still images that don't even transition smoothly. Honestly, if all the scenes were CGI animated, it would have made the story at the very least more tolerable to sit through. The story mode was just shit, and it has no replay value whatsoever. Arcade mode plays just how you expect. You fight against 6 random characters and Nightmare as the final boss. But annoyingly enough, there are no special character intros, outros, and even worse, no character endings. This is all you get for winning. So you're probably wondering, why is this such a big deal? Well, here's the thing. They introduced 7 new characters, and with the exception of Patroclus and Pyrrha, we don't get to learn anything about these people. It makes it hard to get attached to these characters when we don't know anything about them. It just comes off as lazy, and it doesn't give any replay value. Legendary Souls is just a boss rush version of arcade mode, with some of the cheapest and frustrating AIs I've ever come across in a fighting game. Some of these bosses are a major pain in the ass to fight against. Because of the cheapness and some of the frustration that these characters cause, it's just not a worthwhile mode, and there is no replay value in this kind of crap. The last mode we have is Quick Play mode, which is pretty much a challenge mode, where you go up against a bunch of custom characters, or main characters. I mean, it's okay I guess, as you can run into some pretty interesting character designs. But it wears off pretty quickly. There just really isn't any replay value in this mode. And that's about it. Like I said earlier, the lack of single player content in this game is atrocious. Where is Weapon Master? Where is the Chronicles of the Sword type of mode? Where's Survival or Team Battle? It just blows my mind with how they keep taking modes out of the game. I'm sorry, but it's just unacceptable. Now on a more positive note, character creation makes a return in this game, and oh my god was I completely blown away with it. It's arguably the best thing about this game. For starters, we're now able to alter our character's height, individual body parts, select different eyebrows, apply facial makeup to our character's faces, and even apply tattoos and scars onto our character's bodies. The clothing system is fantastic, as they went back to the Soul Calibur 3 route, as you're now able to layer things again, and they gave us 15 equipment slots to decorate our characters with. And even better, you're now able to select from a wide assortment of patterns and textures to put on your character's clothing. You were also able to color your character's weapon, along with the weapon color trail. And last but not least, you were also able to take a cool snapshot photo of your character for their profile avatar. If there was one thing that the developers did right, it was definitely the character creation system. There were a few things that could have been better, like the annoying equipment conflict issues, but aside from that, it's easily one of the best character creators in a fighting game ever made. But with all that said, unfortunately, I have to steer into the problems I have with this game, which mostly have to do with the execution of the new characters, but mainly the replacements, along with the overall character roster. Let's start with Zwei. Honestly, I really like Zwei, but the werewolf concept was a huge disappointment. When Zwei was first revealed, they stated that he was going to be a werewolf, and as a big werewolf fan, I was super excited to see how they were going to pull this off. Imagine my surprise when it was revealed that instead of him turning into an actual werewolf physically, he just summons a magical disembodied wolf. Really? It would have been awesome if Zwei turned into an actual werewolf for a special attack. It just felt like a wasted opportunity. But that aside, he was still a pretty cool character, and I really like him. As for the replacement characters, again, I feel that they were wasted opportunities, because we could have gotten some brand new weapon styles from them. For example, Leisha uses the same style that her mother Zhanghua uses, with a few moves of her own, and while I can understand why, it would have been so much better if she had her own unique weapon style. I personally think that the twin steel fan style would have been a great weapon style for her. Natsu uses the same style as Taki, with a few moves of her own as well, but again, it would have been much better if she had her own unique weapon style. I would have loved to see her with either the Kusarigama weapon, or even a boomerang or shuriken paired with kunai daggers. That, and Taki shouldn't have been removed from the game in the first place. I don't care if she was going to be in her 40s. If Mitsurugi, who is roughly the same age as her, is still able to kick some ass, so can Taki. Sorry guys, I just thought that her being removed from the game was total bullshit. And then there's Zaiba, who replaced both Kilik and Sogmina's styles. While he has some moves of his own, I feel that the 3-section staff would have been a great weapon for him. It just felt like a missed opportunity because we could have gotten some cool new weapon styles from these new characters. Another thing that bothered me was the fact that we got not 2, but 3 mimic characters, with 2 palette swap characters. Are you kidding? I'm sorry, but a fighting game should never have more than 1 mimic character. Edgemaster makes a return in this game, and I'm okay with him being the mimic character, because that's the kind of character he was designed to be. However, Kilik also made a return, but instead, he came back as a mimic character as well. And I'm sorry, but I hated that. Like I mentioned with Zaiba, Kilik should have kept his original staff style, while Zaiba got a new weapon to represent like the 3-section of staff I mentioned earlier. And last but not least, the final boss of this game, Elysium, was also a mimic character as well. I'm just going to come out and say Elysium is my least favorite final boss Soul Calibur has ever had. But in saying that, if she had her own signature fighting style, she would have been a lot more interesting as a standalone character. Like I mentioned earlier, a fighting game should never have more than 1 mimic character. And this dumb decision ended up breeding 2 characters in the process. As for the 2 palette swap characters, we got Alpha Patroclus, who was a palette swap for Patroclus and uses Setsuka's style without the umbrella, and Pyrrha Omega, a palette swap for Pyrrha, and uses the same style with a few slightly altered moves. I found these 2 characters to be waste of character slots, when we could have gotten 2 brand new characters or 2 returning characters. I especially didn't like this slot for Alpha Patroclus, because Patroclus' main style was actually pretty fleshed out and original. I feel that Setsuka should have gotten a proper replacement, like perhaps that young girl from her Soul Calibur 3 ending, who she could have taken in and trained as her apprentice. And I was also disappointed that Rock's adopted son Bangu didn't make it into the game as well, because a 17-year jump would have been a great opportunity to introduce him as a new Soul Calibur character, and he could have either replaced Rock or had a new weapon style. But the biggest thing that pissed me off was how Talim, Zasalamel, and to an extent Yun Sung were completely cut from the game. Are you freaking serious? Especially for Talim and Zasalamel. These 2 characters had unique weapon styles. Why the hell would you cut them out of the game? Now, I wouldn't have minded this as much if they at least kept their weapon styles for character creation, and this also applies to Sophidia and Cassandra's weapon styles as well. Since Soul Calibur 5 was made on the same engine used for Soul Calibur 4, it would have totally been possible to do this, even as DLC. And that, my friends, is the final nail in the coffin for this game. the lack of worthwhile DLC. It was the one thing that could have made this game much better than it was. I mean, they did release a bit of DLC in the beginning, like patching certain characters and including some more items for character creation, which was good. But the DLC was abruptly stopped and discontinued after only 3 months. 3 months! It totally sucked in terms of character creation, because other than the possible inclusion of the cut characters, or having their styles at least, we also never got the rest of the main characters' costumes, nor do we get any more previous costumes from Soul Calibur 4, which really shouldn't have been removed from the game in the first place. Now I know that it sounds like I hate this game, but that is not true. It is definitely not the worst game I've ever played. It's just that it could have been a whole lot better if they kept adding in worthwhile DLC, to at least make up for the rushed game development. Is Soul Calibur 5 a bad game? From a fighting game perspective, absolutely not. It's a good fighting game. The controls are responsive, the graphics are beautiful, and the gameplay speed is great. But as a fan of the series, it was a big letdown. This game was so blatantly rushed, and served as a good example of why I hate it when publishers rush game developers, because all you get are incomplete games that are not worth the $60 price tag. Do I recommend this game? Putting my personal feelings aside, if you're a fan of fighting games or enjoy creating characters, yeah, I recommend it. But again, as a longtime fan of the Soul Calibur franchise, it was still one of the biggest letdowns of my personal gaming history. That all said, Soul Calibur 5 gets 7 out of 10. And for those of you wondering what my opinion on Soul Calibur Lost Swords is, to be blunt, it was bullshit. And it pissed me off how they tried to push such a game when they should have been trying to improve Soul Calibur 5. The game was a stupid marketing decision, and it deserved all the hate it got, and I am glad it died out. Soul Calibur 5 was the last official game we ever got, and it feels that the game franchise in this point of time is in a state of limbo. Some even believe that the series is dead, and I don't blame those who think that. As mediocre as Soul Calibur 5 was, I am open to seeing a Soul Calibur 6. I just hope the developers learn from the mistakes made in this game, and hopefully give us a complete, full-fledged Soul Calibur game next time around. Anyway, that concludes my Soul Calibur marathon. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give this video a like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more gaming goodness. I'm Decadent Gamer, and have a great day. Thanks for watching.